The human collapsed 3 seconds after swallowing. Ambassador Chen hit the crystalline floor of the dining hall with enough force to crack the tiles beneath him. His body convulsed once, twice, then went rigid. Foam bubbled at the corners of his mouth, tinged with something that looked like mercury in the low light. Queen Velsara of the Corvathian Empire rose from her throne seat so quickly her ceremonial robes billowed like storm clouds. Her forearms moved in precise gestures, 2 signaling her guards, 2 reaching toward the fallen human. The 73 dignitaries seated along the endless table froze mid-bite, their various appendages and feeding mechanisms suspended in horror. "Seal the hall!" the queen commanded. Her voice carried the harmonic undertones of her species, but something raw edged into it now. Fear. No one leaves, no one moves. Captain Thren, head of the Royal Guard, materialized at her side. His scales had gone pale, a physiological response his training couldn't suppress. He'd served the queen for 20 cycles, had protected her through 3 assassination attempts and 2 coups. He'd never seen her hands shake before. Shen's eyes had rolled back, showing only whites. His chest barely moved. "The food," someone whispered from down the table. Ambassador Krell of the Therian Collective, his mandibles clicking nervously. The 7th course. Only the human ate from that dish. The queen's gaze snapped to the ornate serving platter, still resting before Chen's place. The delicacy she'd personally prepared as a gesture of goodwill between their species, crystallized drath fruit suspended in fermented nectar from her homeworld's sacred groves. A dish that took 4 months to prepare properly, that symbolized trust and honored friendship. A dish that was lethal to 70% of known species. She'd checked the compatibility charts herself, had triple verified with her xenobiologists. Humans could metabolize the compound safely. Their absurdly resilient digestive systems could handle substances that would kill most carbon-based life forms instantly. The research had been conclusive. "Get the medical team," Thren said into his comm, his voice steady despite the pallor of his scales. "Code absolute. Royal witness required." "No." The queen moved around the table, her robes sweeping aside plates and goblets. "Get everyone, every doctor, every xenospecialist within the 3 systems. Now, Your Majesty, the protocols, personnel, burn the protocols." She dropped to her knees beside Chen, 2 hands checking his pulse points while her other 2 pulled emergency supplies from Thren's kit. "This human came here in peace, to my table. If he dies from my hand even accidentally, the Alliance will fracture. The war factions will have exactly what they need." Thren understood immediately. The human governments had been hesitant to join the galactic community, their species still young and cautious. Chen's posting as ambassador had been a fragile breakthrough, a test of whether humanity could trust the older civilizations. If he died here, in the queen's own palace, at a meal she'd prepared, the political catastrophe would pale compared to the personal one written across his queen's face. She'd spent weeks planning this dinner, had spoken of the human ambassador with something Thren had rarely heard in her voice. Hope. The humans were different, she'd said. They asked unexpected questions. They saw solutions where others saw only problems. They laughed at things that weren't funny and cried at things that weren't sad and somehow made both responses feel appropriate. She'd wanted to impress them, to welcome them properly. The medical team burst through the doors, equipment floating on anti-grav sleds. Chief Physician Morex took one look at Chen and his face went ashen. "Neurotoxic shock," he said. "Scanners already moving over the human's body. His nervous system is shutting down. I need the compound analysis immediately." "It was drath fruit," the queen said. "Properly aged, properly prepared. The compatibility charts show me his blood work." The scanners painted holographic readouts in the air. Morex studied them for 5 seconds that felt like years. "His body is fighting it," he said slowly. "But there's something wrong with the metabolic pathway. The charts didn't account for." He looked up sharply. "Where was this human born?" "Which colony? Earth?" the queen whispered. "Original planet. Not the colonies." Morex's expression shifted to something beyond concern. "The colonies have been gene-modified for broader toxin resistance. Earthborn humans are still baseline. The charts were built on colony data." He turned to his team. "Prepare for full system purge. We need to." Chen's back arched. Blood vessels burst across the whites of his eyes, spreading like crimson lightning. "He's seizing again," someone shouted. The queen grabbed Chen's hand, the human custom she'd studied, the gesture of comfort and connection. His skin felt raw, too hot and too cold simultaneously. "Don't you dare," she said, and Thren heard something in her voice he'd never heard before. Desperation. "Don't you dare die in my house." Morex worked frantically, injecting compounds, adjusting life support fields. His biology is fighting us. Every standard treatment is making it worse. I need specialists. I already sent for them, Thren said. Every doctor within range is being summoned. "But, Your Majesty," he hesitated. "The nearest human physicians are 8 days away." The silence that followed was broken only by the whine of medical equipment and Chen's labored breathing. 8 days. The Queen looked down at the dying human, at the man who'd sat across from her 2 hours ago, and told her about Earth's oceans with such wonder in his eyes that she'd felt wonder too, despite having seen oceans on 1,000 worlds. "Then we keep him alive for 8 days, she said. Captain Thren had been born into a warrior caste, trained from hatching to accept death as an inevitable constant. But standing there, watching his queen cradle a dying alien's hand while her physicians scrambled to undo a mistake born of good intentions, he felt something he'd rarely experienced. He felt afraid. Because Chen's breathing was getting shallower, the monitors were screaming warnings in 6 different languages, and the queen's hands were still shaking. And somewhere in the cold mathematics of biology and chemistry, a countdown had begun that no amount of royal authority could stop. The first specialist arrived within the hour, a Vrel physician who'd pioneered neural reconstruction. She took one look at the readouts and her tentacles went rigid with shock. "His brain is hemorrhaging," she announced. "The toxin is breaking down the blood barrier protections. Even if we'd purge it now, the damage—" She caught the Queen's expression and stopped. "I'll do what I can." More doctors arrived. A Therian surgeon, a crystalline intelligence that specialized in biochemistry, a Keth healer who worked with quantum probability fields. They crowded around Chen's floating medbed, now moved to the palace's primary medical facility, arguing in a dozen languages about approaches and theories and desperate gambits. The Queen stood apart, still wearing her ceremonial robes now stained with Chen's blood, and watched. Ren remained at her side, silent and ready. "I studied for 6 months," she said quietly. "Read every human text I could acquire, learned about their culture, their values, their fears. I wanted to show them we could be trusted, that the galaxy could be a home, not just a political arrangement. You couldn't have known, Your Majesty. I should have verified personally. Should have tested it myself first. You're not biologically compatible with? Then I should have found another way." Her voice cracked. "This human crossed impossible distances to sit at my table. He brought his species' hopes with him, and I poisoned him with kindness." On the medbed, Chen's vital signs continued their slow, inexorable decline. The Vrel physician approached, her movements heavy. "Your Majesty, we need to discuss contingencies. His brain activity is decreasing. We may need to consider... No? If we place him in stasis now, we might preserve enough neural function that when the human doctors arrive, if their biology rejects it like they've rejected every other treatment..." The physician had no answer. The Queen turned back to Chen. In the harsh light of the medical facility, he looked fragile in a way she hadn't noticed before. Humans always seemed so robust, so aggressively alive. But stripped of consciousness, hooked to machines that were barely keeping his organs functioning, he looked terrifyingly mortal. She'd asked him once, during their preliminary meetings, what humans feared most. "Being forgotten," he'd said. "We're so new to all this. So small, compared to your empires. We're afraid we'll be just another footnote in someone else's history." The Queen had promised him then that Earth would be remembered, that humanity's voice would matter. She hadn't imagined she'd be the writing their epitaph. "Keep trying," she said to the assembled physicians. "Every treatment, every theory, everything. I don't care how experimental or how dangerous. His body is already dying. We have nothing to lose." They worked through the night, through the next day. More specialists arrived. 76 of the galaxy's finest medical minds, all focused on saving one human. They tried antitoxins and neural stimulants. They attempted genetic patches and quantum healing. They flooded his system with nanomachines and bathed him in regenerative fields. Chen continued dying, just more slowly now. On the 3rd day, his heart stopped for the first time. They brought him back. On the 4th day, it stopped again. They brought him back again. The Queen never left the medical bay. She slept in chairs when her body forced her to. 8 ration packs handed to her by concerned attendants. She watched the monitors, learned to read the human vital signs, found herself holding her breath every time an alarm sounded. Thren organized the vigil with military precision. He established security perimeters, managed the flood of incoming specialists, handled the increasingly frantic communications from the various governments and factions demanding updates. The galaxy watched and waited, balanced on the edge of a political knife. But in the medical bay, politics felt distant. What mattered was the number on the oxygen monitor, the rhythm of the artificial heartbeat, the desperate hope that the next treatment might be the one that worked. On the 5th day, something changed. Chen's eyes moved beneath their lids. Just a flutter, barely noticeable on the monitors, but the crystalline intelligence caught it immediately. "REM sleep," it chimed in its musical voice. "His brain is dreaming." The Queen was at the bedside in 3 strides. "Is that good?" "It means higher brain function is still present, still fighting." The intelligence's facets refracted light in patterns that conveyed cautious optimism. He's not giving up. As if Chen, somewhere in the toxic darkness drowning his neurons, had made a choice to keep fighting. The Vrel physician reviewed the latest scans. The hemorrhaging has stabilized. Not improving, but not worsening. His body has adapted to our treatments enough to achieve a kind of equilibrium. Can we wake him? Absolutely not. The trauma of consciousness in his current state would... I know. The Queen's voice was hollow. I wanted to apologize. Thren watched his queen, this being who commanded fleets and shaped policy across 100 worlds, stand helpless beside a dying alien. He'd seen her face down warlords without flinching. He'd watched her negotiate treaties that prevented genocides. He'd witnessed her execute traitors with her own hands when necessary. He'd never seen her cry, until now. The tears weren't like human tears. Her species wept in colors, bioluminescent tracks that traced down her face in shades of deep violet. But the meaning was universal. "Your Majesty," he said gently, "perhaps you should rest. We can monitor—" "No," she wiped the colors away. "I'll be here when he wakes up." "When, not if." "When," Thren agreed, because what else could he say? On the 6th day, the human medical ship arrived. Not in 8 days, in 6. They'd pushed their drives past safety limits, burned through fuel reserves, risked tearing their ship apart in their rush to reach Chen. 3 human doctors came through the airlock at a dead run, medical equipment already being unpacked before they'd cleared quarantine. Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation despite the shared name, took command immediately. She was short by human standards, with iron-gray hair pulled back severely and eyes that assessed the entire medical bay in seconds. She looked at the assembled alien physicians, at their desperate faces and exhausted postures, and said simply, "Show me everything." They did. She studied the scans, the treatment logs, the compound analysis. Her expression never changed, but her jaw got tighter with each passing minute. Finally, she looked up at the Queen. "You've been keeping him alive through sheer stubbornness," she said, which is very human of you, ironically. "But, Your Majesty, you need to understand. The damage is catastrophic. His liver is barely functioning, his kidneys have shut down twice, and his neural tissue has been degrading for 6 days." The Queen stood straighter, prepared for the condemnation she deserved. But Dr. Chen surprised her. "However," the human doctor continued, "you also gave us something to work with. Most toxin exposures this severe, the patient dies in hours. You kept him breathing long enough for us to get here. That stubbornness might have saved his life." Dangerous and bright flared in the Queen's chest. "Then you can help him?" "We can try." Chen turned to her team. "Prep for full organ support and neural reconstruction. We need to replace what's damaged and regenerate what we can. It's going to take weeks, and the success rate is maybe 30%, but whatever you need, whatever resources, they're yours." The human doctors went to work with a focused intensity that reminded Thren of soldiers in combat. They moved with precision born of countless similar emergencies, their hands steady despite the obvious exhaustion from their rushed journey. Dr. Chen explained as she worked, more for the Queen's benefit than anyone else's. "Human biology is absurdly resilient, but in stupid ways. We can survive injuries that would kill most species, but we're also vulnerable to substances that wouldn't bother them. It's the price of our adaptability. The good news is that human neural tissue can regenerate under the right conditions. The bad news is those conditions require technology that won't be available for another century. Fortunately, I don't believe in waiting." "Experimental treatment?" the Vrel physician asked. "Experimental species," Dr. Chen replied. "We've had to get creative. comes from being the new kids in a galaxy that's had medical science figured out for millennia. The Queen watched every minute of it, learning more about human anatomy than she'd ever intended. She saw them replace Chen's damaged organs with synthetic ones grown from his own cells. Watched them inject nanomachines that would rebuild neural pathways one synapse at a time. Witnessed them flood his body with a compound that smelled like Earth's oceans and somehow, impossibly, made his vital signs strengthen. When Dr. Chen finally stepped back from the table, her hands were shaking. "He's stable," she said. "Actually stable, not just not dying this second stable. The regeneration will take weeks, but his brain activity is improving. He should wake up in a few days." The relief in the room was palpable. Several of the alien physicians actually collapsed, their bodies giving out from stress and exhaustion. The Queen remained standing, but only barely. "Thank you," she said to Dr. Chen. "Your species has been part of our alliance for less than a year, and already you've saved one of our own?" The human doctor's smile was tired. "That's what we do. Humans are stupidly loyal to each other. It's both our greatest strength and our most annoying trait." Her expression softened. "But, Your Majesty, I reviewed the records. The other physicians told me what you did, how you stayed with him, how you pushed them to keep trying even when the situation looked hopeless. That's not just political responsibility, that's personal."
The Queen met her eyes.
"He was my guest. My friend, I hoped. I failed to protect him. You kept him alive against impossible odds using medicine you didn't understand for a species you'd barely met. I'd say you protected him pretty well." Thren watched his Queen's shoulders finally relax, the tension of 6 days releasing all at once. "I want to be here when he wakes," the Queen said. Dr. Chen nodded. "I assumed you would be." Chen woke on the 8th day, exactly when the original estimate said human physicians would arrive. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. His eyes opened slowly, focusing with difficulty on the ceiling of the medical bay. Then he turned his head, a movement that made half the monitoring equipment shriek alarms, and saw the Queen sitting beside his bed. She looked terrible. Her ceremonial robes were gone, replaced with simple clothes. Her face was drawn, exhausted. Her eyes were ringed with colors that suggested she'd been crying recently. She looked beautiful. "Hey," Chen said, his voice barely a whisper. "Did I miss dessert?" The Queen's laugh was half-sob. "You absolute fool. You nearly died." Yeah, I got that impression from all the..." He gestured vaguely at the equipment surrounding him. "Everything." "What happened?" "The Drath fruit. It was toxic to baseline humans. The compatibility charts were based on colony populations. I poisoned you." The words came out rushed, desperate. "Chen, I am so deeply sorry. I nearly killed you with my ignorance and my arrogance and my..." "Hey!" He reached out, the movement clumsy and weak, but found her hand. "Accidents happen. And besides, I'm not dead." "So we're good." "We are absolutely not good. You've been unconscious for 8 days. Your organs failed. Your brain was hemorrhaging. The finest medical minds in 3 sectors barely kept you alive long enough for your own doctors to arrive, and you stayed with me the whole time?" "Of course I did." "Then yeah." Chen's smile was weak but genuine. "We're good." Thren, standing guard at the door, felt something shift in his understanding of humans. This was why they'd survived their violent history, their countless wars and disasters. Not because they were stronger or smarter than other species, but because they could look at a catastrophe, acknowledge it, and then simply forgive. "The political situation is complicated," the Queen said, shifting to safer ground. "Your government is threatening sanctions. 3 factions are calling for my abdication. The alliance is fracturing over... Tell them I ate something I shouldn't have and got a stomachache. Humans do it all the time. No big deal." "Thanks to you, Chen told me what you did, how you mobilized the entire galactic medical community, how you refused to let me die. It was my responsibility." "No." His eyes met hers, suddenly sharp despite the exhaustion. "It was friendship. Or at least, the beginning of one. You don't summon 76 specialists for political responsibility. You do that for someone you care about." The Queen had no answer to that. "Besides," Chen continued, "now we have a story. The time the human ambassador was stupid enough to eat alien poison at a royal dinner, that's going in the history books for sure. Earth definitely won't be forgotten now." Despite everything, the Queen smiled. "You're insane. I'm human. Close enough." Dr. Chen appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. Glad to see you're awake, Ambassador. How's the pain level? Like someone replaced my organs with angry bees. So, not great. They're rebuilding your neural tissue. Should feel better in a few weeks. She glanced at the Queen. Your Majesty, he needs rest, and you look like you could use about 40 hours of sleep yourself. The Queen stood reluctantly. I'll return tomorrow. Looking forward to it, Chen said. Maybe we can try that dessert I missed, assuming it won't kill me. I'm never feeding you again. Probably wise. As the Queen left the medical bay, Thren fell into step beside her. They walked in silence through the palace corridors, past the guards and servants who'd been maintaining vigil for 8 days, until they reached her private chambers. Captain, she said at the door, thank you for managing everything while I was indisposed. My duty and my honor, Your Majesty. She hesitated, then said quietly, Did you see his face when he woke up? I did. He wasn't angry. He should have been furious, should have demanded justice, should have used this as leverage against us. But instead she trailed off. He forgave you, Thren finished. Immediately, without hesitation. As if nearly dying was just an unfortunate misunderstanding. The Queen shook her head. I don't understand humans. Perhaps that's why they're worth knowing, Your Majesty. She smiled. Perhaps it is. 3 weeks later, Chen was strong enough to leave the medical bay. The Queen insisted on being present, despite Dr. Chen's protests about official ceremonies and political optics. I'm just walking him to his quarters, the Queen said. That's not a political statement. Then let them interpret this one. Chen moved slowly, still regaining strength, but he walked without assistance. A significant victory, according to Dr. Bid. Chen. They made their way through the palace gardens, the Queen adjusting her pace to match his. I've been reading about Earth, she said, while you were recovering. Trying to understand what kind of world produces someone who can forgive assassination by fruit. Still hurts to laugh. Yeah, Earth is complicated. We've got oceans and mountains and about 8 billion people who all have very strong opinions about everything. It sounds chaotic. It is. But it's home. He paused beside a fountain, catching his breath. You know what I missed most? The sound of rain. It's different on Earth. Softer, maybe. Or maybe I just remember it that way. The Queen gestured, and servants appeared with a control panel. She entered a sequence, and the palace's environmental system shifted. Clouds formed overhead, the atmospheric processors creating precipitation programmed from Earth's weather patterns. Rain began to fall, gentle and warm. Chen looked up, eyes wide. You programmed rain? I programmed Earth rain, or as close as our systems could approximate. I thought you might appreciate it. He stood there, face turned skyward, letting the water wash over him. When he finally looked at her, his eyes were bright. Thank you, he said simply. It's just rain. No. He met her gaze. It's an apology and a welcome and a promise all at once. It's you saying my home matters, that I matter. The Queen felt something warm spread through her chest. You do matter, Ambassador Chen. Your species matters. Despite this catastrophic beginning, I meant what I said at the dinner. Earth has a place here. Even though we're chaos incarnate, who eat things we shouldn't, especially because of that. She smiled. The galaxy has been stable for too long. Predictable. Safe. We've forgotten how to adapt, how to take risks. Humanity reminds us what it means to be alive rather than just existing. They walked together through the rain, talking about Earth and Corvathos, about their respective homes and the vast distances between them. The Queen learned about human cities and human music and the inexplicable human fondness for keeping small predators as companions. Chen learned about Corvathian philosophy and art and the complex social structures that govern their empire. By the time they reached his quarters, they were both soaked and shivering. I should let you rest, the Queen said. Yeah, Dr. Chen will yell at both of us if she finds out we were walking in the rain. He smiled. But thank you. For everything. For saving my life, and for the rain, and for being someone worth crossing the galaxy to meet. The Queen's hands moved in a gesture of deep respect, all 4 arms forming the traditional sign of honored friendship. The honor is mine, Ambassador. Welcome to the Alliance. Welcome to the galaxy. Glad to be here. He paused. Even if it did almost kill me. I promise the next dinner will be thoroughly tested. Looking forward to it. As the queen walked back through the palace, Thren noticed something different about her bearing. The weight she'd carried for weeks had lifted. She moved with purpose again, with confidence. "The human will be all right," he observed. "More than all right. He'll be exceptional." She glanced back toward Chen's quarters. "They all will be. Humanity is going to change the galaxy, Thren. I can feel it. For better or worse? Both, probably. But definitely not boring." The official report on the incident was released 2 days later. Ambassador Chen had suffered an adverse reaction to xenobiological cuisine due to outdated compatibility data. No malice was involved. The Queen had personally mobilized medical resources to ensure his survival, demonstrating the Alliance's commitment to protecting its members. All participating physicians were honored for their service. Chen himself appeared at the press conference, still pale but smiling, and diffused the political crisis with a single statement. "I got food poisoning at a dinner party. It sucked. The Queen and her doctors saved my life." End of story. Now, if everyone could please stop trying to start a war over my poor dietary choices, I'd appreciate it. I've got work to do. The simplicity of it, the very human refusal to complicate an accident into a conspiracy, caught the galaxy off guard. The war factions had nothing to work with, the politicians had no angle to exploit. The crisis ended not with a bang, but with an awkward, anticlimactic fizzle, which was, several analysts noted, very human. 6 months later, the Queen hosted another dinner. This time, every dish was triple verified for human compatibility. Chen attended, along with 50 other ambassadors and dignitaries from across the Alliance. Before the meal, the Queen stood and raised her glass. "To new friends," she said, "and the mistakes that lead us to them. May we always have the courage to risk, the wisdom to adapt, and the grace to forgive. And may we always check the ingredients first." The room erupted in laughter, human and alien voices blending in genuine mirth. As the dinner progressed without incident, the Queen found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in months. Chen sat to her right, arguing cheerfully with a Therian diplomat about the merits of various sporting events. His laughter filled the hall, infectious and alive. She'd almost killed him. Had watched him hover at the edge of death for 8 agonizing days. Had been prepared to shoulder the guilt of destroying the human alliance through carelessness. Instead, she'd gained a friend. And humanity, in all its chaotic, forgiving, absurdly resilient glory, had found its place among the stars. Not through perfection or superiority, but through the simple act of choosing life over grievance, friendship over politics, and hope over fear. The galaxy would never be the same. And watching Chen laugh, surrounded by beings from 100 worlds, the Queen decided that was exactly as it should be. Later, when the guests had departed and the palace had quieted, Chen found her on one of the observation decks. She stood looking out at the stars, at the vast tapestry of civilizations that comprised the Alliance. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said, joining her at the viewport. "Overwhelming sometimes. So many worlds, so many voices, all trying to find harmony. That's what makes it worth it." He glanced at her. "You know, back on Earth, we have a saying, 'What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.'" "That's a terrible saying." "Yeah, we've got a lot of those. But in this case, maybe it's true. This whole mess, it could have destroyed everything. Instead, it built something stronger. Trust," the Queen said softly. "Exactly. You trusted humanity enough to invite me. I trusted you enough to eat your cooking, which in retrospect was maybe too much trust. Chen. But seriously, we went through fire together and came out friends. That's not nothing." The Queen looked at him, this human who'd traveled across the void to join a civilization older than his species' recorded history, who'd nearly died for the crime of being trusting and had responded with forgiveness instead of rage. "No," she agreed. "That's not nothing at all." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars, and for the first time in her long reign, the Queen felt truly hopeful about the future. Because if humanity could survive her cooking, they could survive anything. And together, maybe they could build something beautiful. Something worth the risk.